Okay. You know. Then bring it back this
Yeah.
Some of the kids to do that.
That's gonna be,
Oh, that's gonna be.
that's gonna be their ratings going back. Pat and Ray are one top.
Okay.
But very next week, in fact, coming up right so fast.
Okay.
So he was gonna run also done scholarship last year
Okay.
and golf, he couldn't.
Okay.
So we're trying to put on, yeah, ratings do that and check.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you need somebody. More than regular.
I think it's like for Marty sometime.
Okay.
If not, yeah,
Lovely.
okay, all right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, that ring is right on.
I hear you.
Good, how are you?
The deal where somebody checked. It is done, but she wants to. Oh, that's she has show. Oh, on there going on.
You give one out to them?
Yes.
Yeah, you can't there. We're at.
We're not gonna turn it out.
Sometimes. Heavenly Father, for the opportunity to govern and gather to and give us your guidance and for the people of Oklahoma County. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, roll call, please.
Small,
Here.
Brady,
Here.
go out there.
Here.
Brumman, here, Thompson.
Here. I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes from August 3rd, regular meeting. So moved. Second. Who seconded? Any further comments? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Public comment, limited 3 minutes. Please state your name and your township. Okay, looks like we don't have any. Moving on. We'll start, I'm sorry, I need to modify the agenda to add John Hartley for cybersecurity. They come on after presentation after Dan O'Connor. That being said, we'll start with Carrie Scott, Building Department second quarter report.
Just a few minutes of your time. You each should have a blue packet. Just wanted to review a little bit what's going on over at the building department. In blue, I have 2001, green, I have 2022. And then over to the right, I have where we're up and down. And most of the areas, we're up quite a bit in the mechanical. We're down almost 6,000 in the electrical, and we're down almost 500 in the plumbing, but overall, we're up $2,300 from 6 months this year to compared to 6 months last year. Pulling it by permits, we're up in all the areas quite a bit. In the building department, we're up by 23. Mechanical, we're up by 26. The plumbing, we're down by 2, but overall, we're up by 58 permits compared to last year, the last 6 months. And then I kind of broke down of the areas where the permits and the building department. In the new construction, we're up by 1 compared to last year, the first 6 months. Additions were up by 1. The demos were down by 4. Roof permits were up by 19, and miscellaneous, which basically includes decks or windows or remodeling, we're up by 6, but overall from last year to this year, we're up by 23. And then I just want to show the new addresses that we have here in the county. We're up by 10 for the building. Power basically is just, a lot of people are having their empty lots where they're putting up temporary pole. A lot of people are putting up poles and just putting in their campers instead of putting up homes. And with that, consumers makes them go through the building department. They have to have an address. So we're up by 2 on that. And driveways, a lot of times it's just a corner lot where people decide they want to change their driveway from one road to the other. So that's pretty much, but overall, from new addresses from last year to this year, we're up by 18. So overall, we're doing pretty good in the building department. So, any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
When you have those changes from road to road, are those transmitted to the equalization department or the township?
They're given to equalization, they're given to the post office, and they're given to consumers and 911.
Okay, so with when we're not contracting anymore next year, will they be given to the assessors so they have the information on the properties?
That I will normally, the addresses go through, to my knowledge, equalization.
For
So
most townships,
from,
but
yes,
when we stop that contracting.
sure that has anything to do with the addresses, though I'm not sure. But
The
yes,
property- the property itself, yeah, on the tax roll will have a different address if you've assigned it a different address.
Mhm.
And once we don't have that, no longer have that contract, it will be going through the assessor.
Okay, yes, because then that property ID has to have the address on it when we assign a new address. So yes, I guess then that would then have to go through the township, through the assessor.
That will just be a little note for me. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, all right, thank you.
You. Next up, Lisa Cruz. ELE.
So before we get started, we're gonna go through a couple paper copies. I've provided some for that table. Do you need some copies?
Yes.
Okay. So while I'm gathering those copies, my name is Lisa Cruz. And I would like to modify the agenda. My last name is Kruse. I always say I'm not like Tom or Penelope. I'm my own Cruz. And just a little background on me. I did private environmental consulting for 3.5 years, and then I took a position with the state of Michigan at the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, where I was the environmental manager. Guard base in Alpena, the Alpena CRTC. Uh-oh. And then I recently, in the past 8 months, joined EAGLE, which is the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, formerly known as the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. So the couple of documents we're going to go over today was based on the VA contacting me about potentially the village selling or donating the property to the county. So I'm not going to get into the nitty gritties about what type of contamination is out there, because that's essentially the crux of the issue, to my understanding, is making sure that the county is not held liable for any potential contamination out there. So we're going to go through that process of how to do that. So we're going to first start with the handout called Environmental Cleanup Citizens Guide. All of these handouts are also available online, and I do have extra paper copies. So to start off, the state of Michigan has laws requiring cleanup of contaminated properties. And with those laws, there's many different parts. So within the division, we refer to different types of contamination fall under different parts. So for example, all underground storage tanks fall under Part 213. All other contamination is Part 201. So if you ever hear about contamination in parts, that's referring to the Michigan laws that regulate how to address that contamination. So what types of contamination or sources are out there? We have gas stations, other industrial processes like laundromats, manufacturers, electroplating, facilities that use dip tanks, things like that. And it all goes back to the definition of what's a hazardous substance and determining exposure and risk. So the division I work for in EAGLE, the Remediation and Redevelopment Division, that's our exact mission set, is addressing human health and the environment in terms of contaminated properties. We have other divisions in EAGLE that deal with air quality, water quality, the storage and transportation of hazardous materials, but my division specifically deals with contaminated properties. So that's the general guide. And the big question is, are you liable for contaminated property? That's the $1 million question, right? You're not liable for the cost of cleanups if you are a party after June 5th of 1995 and you do something called a baseline environmental assessment. And you follow all the different rules within that baseline environmental assessment and submit it to EAGLE. So that's the general guide. I'm not going to go through those other parts because we're going to go to the more detailed sheet next. So the next one is the baseline environmental assessment. So for a baseline environmental assessment or for a BEA, so you want to buy or lease or you're foreclosing on a property. So the village wants to sell or donate or transfer the property to the county. So in order for the county to not be responsible for any potential contamination on that property, a BEA should be done. And there's a couple different parts to a BEA. The first part of a BEA is doing something called a phase one. A phase one is where you gather documents and look at different databases to see if there's even a potential for environmental contamination. And all of this is done through usually a private environmental consulting firm that meets the definition of an environmental professional. You can't just have anyone go out and do this assessment because you want to make sure you have someone who's qualified. So they're looking at all the different potential recognized environmental conditions or RECs. So on the state of Michigan website, there is a database that environmental consultants can put themselves in. So anyone, if you're looking for whether it's asbestos sampling or something like a BEA, you can type in what type of service you're looking for and different consultants can be provided. As the state, you can't say you have to use this consultant as long as the consultant meets the definition of an environmental professional and they follow all the rules and regulations to submit that BEA, you can use them. So the main, the first phase, at phase 1s are all appropriate inquiries, identify those recognized environmental conditions. So in that block in the village of Lincoln, there was a former gas station across the street. There was also a laundromat. Laundromats are, they usually have, especially if it's an old laundromat, are potential recognized environmental conditions for contamination. So in that block, you have a gas station across the street and you have a laundromat. So in that phase 1, when that environmental professional is going through that, that's going to be some flags that there's potential for some environmental contamination. So after that phase 1, if it's determined, we're going to the next page. After that phase 1 is completed and it's determined there's potential for environmental contamination, you go to something called a phase 2. Phase 2 is where the environmental professional will, along with the client, so it would be the county in this case, would discuss where should they take some soil and some groundwater samples, or if there's a building already on site, maybe some soil vapor or soil gas samples. So for that property, it might look something like we need to take some soil and groundwater samples right near the road on the property line because that gas station was across the street. And maybe on that other side because there was a historic laundromat there. Then after you decide your locations, you have to decide what to sample for. If you're only looking for apples, but there's oranges around you, you gotta be looking for the right type of contaminant. So with a gas station, you're looking at things that used to be in gasoline. For laundromats, you're looking at things that are solvents that they use to clean laundry. So that's something that the consultant, since they're an environmental professional, are going to recommend. These are the type of analysis we should run on those different medias. So after that phase 2 is done and the results come back, that's where it's determined if the site is a facility or not. If the analytical comes back and it's above the state of Michigan's generic cleanup criteria for that contaminant, that is a site of environmental contamination because it's above that unrestricted residential closure. That means there's something in the ground that got dumped or spilled or leaked or got there somehow. So once that phase 2 is done, that phase 1 and that phase 2 make up a baseline environmental assessment saying we did a paper exercise and looked at potential areas. We physically took some samples. We found contamination. We submitted it to the state within the required time frame, and we're buying this property, but we did not cause this issue. And as long as you follow the timelines, the magic number is 45 and 6 months, 45 days and 6 months, that new potential owner is not liable for that contamination. So on that page 3, there's a nice little diagram there where it says for phase 1, you do the field work, you take those samples, perform that analysis. That environmental professional drafts that baseline environmental assessment and completes that BEA. And that the key is the BEA has to be submitted to Eagle within 6 months after the earlier date of becoming the owner, operator, or foreclosed on that property.
Did you say prior to?
Yeah, it says, yeah, within 6 months after the earlier date. So you have 45 days to do that phase 1, phase 2, get the BEA. They have some time to write up the final report and then submit it to the state.
If I may.
I'm gonna grab some water while you're asking the question.
Okay. Then the report that we have from 2003 is totally irrelevant. Is that a fair statement?
It's not totally irrelevant. So the village of Lincoln did do a BEA in 2003. So when the village bought the property from, XYZ, that BEA made it to where the village was not liable for that contamination. So that's really important for the village to have that BEA on file. Now, 2003 was a long time ago. So something could have occurred on that property between 2003 and today. Because the gas station across the street, for example, I'll go into a little bit what's there. So the gas station across the street, was Somers, and it did become a state funded project. So the state did spend some money out there to clean up the contamination. There was a large excavation and a large dewatering. And we did an approved project completion saying we got rid of a lot of the contamination, but we didn't get all of it. And there's some contamination left, but we addressed the immediate risks to humans and the environment. And it just, unless we want to dig up the road, that's where the contamination is left. It was deemed not wise to spend state funds to continue chasing that contamination that's underneath the road, but we got it off of that main parcel. So between 2003 and today, it might have migrated a little bit, but that's really, we're doing the BEA today between the BEA for Alcona County will make it to where we did not create that contamination. This is the condition that we received the property in. So I wouldn't say that it's irrelevant. I think it was really important that it was required for the village to do that. Now, when the environmental professional does his phase one, looking at all the paperwork, he's going to look at that to see, okay, where did they sample? Because he'll probably take samples not right where those samples were. It just depends on what those recognized environmental conditions that come up. If there was a huge emergency spill or other things like that popped up too. So that's the BEA. Is there any other questions on just general regulations or BEAs? Because we got one more sheet.
So according to the timeline, then you can do a BA in the property before you own it, right?
Yes, you have,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's always wise to do it. I know it gives
I
you
know
a
it's
little bit of
important.
leeway to that after you buy it, you can do it, but most people want to know what they're getting into before they purchase it. Because that's honestly a great segue to our next sheet. So the next one is due care obligation. So after you do your BEA and it's submitted to the state, so you're not liable for that environmental contamination that is there. However, as a new owner or operator of the property, you do have due care obligations. And under those due care obligations, the main thing is you can't make the problem worse, and you have to protect the people that are using that parcel or that property or that facility or that building. So, for example, to making the problem not worse, if there's a bunch of dirty dirt, you can't excavate it and go dump it somewhere and expose it, dump it improperly and expose a bunch of people to that. You can't pump contaminated water on your neighbor's property. Things like that. So you can't make the conditions worse. You can't create like a fire and explosion hazard. And then the second one of protecting people in a building. For example, one of the more common due care obligations is vapor intrusion. So you have a petroleum product or a solvent, and that contamination is basically putting vapors inside of a building. And those vapors can be toxic. And so to address those vapors, you usually put in a mitigation system or as a due care obligation, if you don't want to put in a mitigation system, you can remove the contamination. You're not required to, but you have obligations to make sure if you're putting people in a building, that they're not exposed to toxic vapors that are going to affect their health. So for example, the parcel right now is vacant, correct? Yeah, so the best time to put in any sort of mitigation system, if it's required, this is just one of the more common due care obligations, is when you have a building that's not built yet. It's much harder to put in an fixing an existing structure. It's a lot easier to build it right in when the building's brand new. And so those are the main things for due care obligation is you can't make the problem worse. And if people are using that parcel, you can't expose them to risk and potentially unhealthy conditions. Another example, let's say you have a park, because I think there's a proposal for a little park, right? Behind the facility. If you have a park and you have contamination that it's above the direct contact for lead, you can't have that lead contaminated dirt that is above the direct contact criteria for human health be exposed. So that would have some sort of barrier, or you bring in some clean fill at so many inches, things like that. So those are just a couple of different examples of due care. So, and then is there any questions on that? Okay, so for just a quick summary, it's for the transition between the village and the county, is the county needs to do, they should hire a environmental professional to do that phase 1 and phase 2. And then if it's determined that there is still some contamination there above that criteria to make it a site, they submit that BEA to Eagle to make it to where the county is not liable for that contamination. Then the only requirements that the county would have after that is potentially any due care requirements if there's any issues based on what was found. The other two pieces of paper I have, unfortunately, our brownfield redevelopment coordinator could not make it today. She was at a conference for brownfield personnel. Here. I could knock it over.
We worked with Julie already.
Yeah, so she just wanted to provide these just as a refresher, but if Julie wants to come to any township or other board meetings, she's more than welcome, or she's more than willing to come out to help get funding. The only thing with some of the brownfield redevelopment programs and funding is they're not as quickly as the timeline. So if you're in a time crunch, not the best tool. But if you have some forward planning of some bigger projects, that's definitely something that utilizing those grants is really great. Yeah.
Does the Eagle have a list of companies, I wouldn't say recommended, but at least ones that you've worked with that are reputable for the assessment? Yeah, so that database online, our consultants can upload their information. And that's something that we can't recommend, but I can say, yes, I've worked with them, or no, I haven't. Like the consultant that Tony provided, like, yes, we work with that consultant all the time.
Yeah. What's the group that we work with, the Julie project? SME? Yeah.
We also work with them all the
Yeah.
time. There's a handful of consultants that really focus on Northeast Michigan. So they're consultants that we work with all the time on different types of projects.
And if I may, I already contacted a consultant. Here's an estimate. They're looking at $1,950 for phase 1. And if they need to go to phase 2, it's an extra $1,000.
And the consultant that he contacted, like I said, they've done work, with the state all the time. So they know all the rules and regulations and reporting and deadlines and timelines.
Okay. Any other questions for Lisa? Oh, very good. This is a fantastic presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. And just to add, I am the program manager for Alcona County for both of those different parts of contamination. So whether it's gas station or all the other contamination, I'm the program manager. So, you know, anything else comes up or if there's any other concerns, just let me know. And I hopefully I can address it. So.
Great, thanks. I want to also say, thank you, Tony, for doing this. Yes. I want to recognize that it was a good step for you to do this, and thank you for.
Well, we're at that point that this is what it needs to happen
Yes.
and everything. And I recommend doing the phase 1 and phase 2. You know, and like I said, the report from 2003 showed that it was pretty much cleaned up, but you know, lots changed from 2003 to now.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Julie. Not Julie, Lisa, man, we'll get all of your names wrong. Okay. Very good. Dan O'Connor. With the Florida Community Schools update.
Okay. Try to stop by once a year or so and just kind of provide a before the school year update a bit. And so try to keep the presentation short and glad to take questions. I do have a refer a friend flyer for substitutes. If anyone knows of someone being willing to substitute, we are our third party entity that we're working with is providing $100 of referral. Very shallow pool, just like the last few years, challenging to find substitutes. So, you know, if you happen to know anybody that is interested in working with students and kids, we would love to find a niche for them, no matter where it might be, kitchen, teaching, paraprofessional. We'd be happy to have them wherever they choose. Let's start the presentation. So just kind of a brief in and out of some new staff. The ones in bold are actually in addition positions that we've used some federal funding to be able to secure some extra supports for students. So we have a new middle school math teacher. We're able to replace, we had 60 years of special education experience, retire out of the district after the school year. So we've had Angela Forsyth joining us in special education. We had 2 paraprofessionals retire that had about 60 years experience as well. So we've got lots of new faces and new places. Katrina Boyette joining us as a para. Jody Clissold was a paraprofessional for us for 5 years. She's actually on a paraprofessional, the teacher program through an alternative track. So excited to have her make that transition to a new role. We've got 2 new first grade teachers and Monica Weaver, whichever one you wanted to assign it to. That's actually a 3rd section of first grade. So we're able to keep class sizes as low as possible, actually below 17, which is a great thing for kids. So that has 3 sections of kindergarten and first grade, which keeps our class sizes right around 17 or 16, depending on the amount of students that happen to flow in over the next couple of weeks. We have a new 3rd grade teacher, Anna Friedman. She's actually out of Alaska. So we're excited to gain her perspective and comes to us with some experience. Richard Haas joined us as our new maintenance director. He actually joined the team in mid-June. So he's working, we have a large footprint for a very small district. So Richard has a lot to catch up with in terms of infrastructure. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the plans that we have in a few slides later. Shauna Boyd was hired as a high school, middle school secretary in the fall of last school year. And obviously in light of Jackie Kelly's tragic passing in June, Shauna is transitioning from the middle high school secretary position to the district office. She's doing a bang up job in a really tough circumstance and did not anticipate transitioning that fast, you know, into a new role, but doing a great job. Angie Werner was a kind of a substitute paraprofessional, and she's actually going to be our assistant preschool teacher. Cindy Charbonneau had been a longtime para at the high school and the elementary. She's actually sliding into a food cook cashier and a facility caretaker role. Jessica Yoakum is filling Shauna's opening as middle high school secretary. So kind of those 3 secretaries, Shauna, Jessica, and Caitlin at our elementary are responsible for $11 million of our per pupil funding, and they're all 2 years experience or less. So we've got a lot of responsibility on some new staff right now in terms of trying to get the nitty gritty details and having, you know, everything in place for the state. Cassandra Ortiz is and that's actually Cassie Boyk, for those that are familiar with maybe Alcona County and some alumni. Cassie is joining us as a middle high school special education teacher after being at Escota for the last couple of years as a social worker. Bobby Falls taking over as the lead cook in the elementary building, and we still have 1 vacant special education position. So all in all, very grateful that we only have one vacancy right now, because as you know, the pool of workers, not only just educators, is very thin, and special education, the pipeline for that is at 0. So we are looking at, as I'll talk about a little bit later, a few grow your own programs to try to create some different ways to integrate people looking for career changes. Just kind of an idea of supports that we have for the students. So we have 2 school success workers through a partnership with NEMSCA, 1 in each building. New as part of their new addition of state funding through NEMSCA. So we actually have a truancy specialist that will be split between Fairview and Alcona. So we're excited to kind of have that extra layer of attention to detail and support for families and students to try to nip truancy situations, as soon as possible. We were able to get 3 additional grants through AmeriCorps, which those provide interventions for students that might be falling behind or maybe have missed a lot of school the last few years. So we have a early literacy specialist. We have actually a preschool specialist. That'll be a 3rd body in our 16 student preschool, which is really exciting. We have a math specialist that'll be specializing in 4th through 8th grade interventions for students. And then a brand new position that we're excited about, we have a food and nutrition educator through a program called Food Corps, through the AmeriCorps program, that will be providing nutrition education and food education for students in classrooms K-8. Also helping our food service department with some menu education and potential revisions there, and trying to take our hoop house and community garden to the next level as well. So should be a very cool spot. We're starting, Sheriff Stevenson is confident at this point right now that we might have a school resource officer. I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag on that one a little bit early, but he's confident that he's got enough staff to potentially be able to do that. On this kind of review of our career in college, so we're fortunate to have 2 people, K-12, just focusing on helping students have access and exposure to career in college. We have our traditional guidance counselor, then we have a career navigator, and she splits time between our early college coordinator. So for those that are unfamiliar with early college, that's an opportunity for a 5th year of high school, but you're really at the college for the most part, and you're able to get up to an associate's degree after that 5th year. So we will have our 2nd cohort graduating this spring. We had about 10 students out of our 50 or 60 students per grade level that choose to participate in early college. So sometimes it's hard to sell that 5th year of high school to some students. They don't quite see it as a reward of potentially getting those extra college credits, but really trying to promote that program and offer that opportunity for students. Behavioral supports. So through 3 different grants, we have 4 therapists. We have a dean of students, Jason Summers, and then we were able to add a school social worker and a school nurse through a new grant that we were able to grab in February of last spring. So lots of supports spread across our district for 700 students or so, and feel good about the layers of support that we have. I think as I'll talk about a little later, just trying to make sure all those play nice together, and we're spreading out and conquering and not stepping on each other's toes as we work our way through. Just a couple basic projects. Polished concrete, we've continued work on that at the elementary building. So it's been a 6 classroom a year phase out of carpet that I'm embarrassed to say was 30 years old, but I inherited that situation. So we've been gradually just kind of phasing that out. Much healthier environment for students in terms of air quality. We were able to update our PA and bell system. We had a pretty dysfunctional PA and bell system prior that communication, whether it be emergency situations or just straight up announcements, was not where it needed to be. So you see the one on the left, that'll be in classrooms, and you see the one on the right, that'll be in most of the hallways around the district. New camera system that we've been able to, obviously intervene in student discipline situations much easier potentially. A lot of access on different devices that are at our fingertips, and we've been able to really have improved access and communication for emergency management. If something were to come up and we're able to need to get folks to our site quickly, or law enforcement as well, allowing them to have access also. So drastically improved system. And I think the camera system was right around 20 years old, and the PA system was hodgepodged 40-year-old system and a 20-year-old system, all trying to work nicely together. That didn't work very well. So nice, some very substantial upgrades. We were able to replace the fiber line at the elementary. Again, 30 years ago, that fiber installed at the elementary was not prepared for the bandwidth that we're operating out of today. So that was a nice addition. We were able to add Wi-Fi on all 10 school buses. Agri-Science was able to access a grant for a sawmill and be able to start some programming around logging, as well as replacing the evaporator in the maple syrup sugar shack. So for those that attend the maple syrup celebration, you'll see a new evaporator this spring if you decide to swing in through there. The boiler system at the middle high school is in the midst of being replaced. That was a 20-plus-year-old boiler system that had stacks falling and kind of cave in on each other last November during that windstorm. So we have a new system going in there. Excited about that. Some new garage doors in the agri science and wood shop. Talked about polished concrete. Targeting bids for a new playground or kind of a revamped playground at the elementary, taking advantage of some of the existing structures as well as adding to it for our younger students next summer. Outdoor classroom potentially built next summer by our elementary building. And then our 60-year-old kitchen at the middle high school, we're targeting a renovation of that next summer as well. That's long overdue for that facility. And just kind of a couple other focus areas as we work through it. So, teaching applicants are not few and far between at this point, and really difficult to find certified staff. So we're really trying to bridge people in the community that might be looking for a different career and trying to allow them soft starts in education, not necessarily throwing them in front of a kindergarten classroom, but looking for ways to kind of build their experience and exposure and support them towards potentially, looking at a larger career in education. So that's going to be the new norm. You're going to hear a lot about that with the state budget. I think the supplemental budget that'll be coming out here a little bit later this fall at the state level as well. We're really trying to take those new staff, whether they're going through alternative programs or they're just brand new staff to the district, and trying to support the heck out of them and make sure they have the supports in place to move students academically forward and build those great relationships with them that they have to be able to be successful. I talked about efficiency and utilization of student support. So our support system is a far cry from a decade ago when I kind of left teaching and entered the principal land. And so we've got all these amazing supports, and now we just have to make sure we're using everybody wisely and trying to divide and conquer and support all of our students in whatever manner they might need. We've been able to add some data systems that are going to be able to help us dig a little bit deeper in terms of targeted interventions for students, both academically and behaviorally. So excited about that. We have some pilot programs happening this fall. We're blessed in the community to have a sinking fund each year that generates about $500,000 to be able to tackle infrastructure projects. All that being said, it seems like it's hard to plan for that when you have infrastructure challenges like the boiler system and other things popping up, and some other infrastructure pieces that will be sinking funding them for a long time at this rate if we don't kind of come up with a different source for different options to try to be able to tackle some of those things. So trying to look at some different options, looking at some other energy efficiency components, try to be able to save some money and be able to potentially save for additional infrastructure projects later. But I could probably name $10 million projects off the top of my head right now we're able to, like an example would be, we were able to do the control system at our middle high school. And then now we've had to do the boiler systems by necessity, but then everything in between is not new. So that kind of poses some problems and we lose some of the efficiency, as we try to work through it. So not to plan, but as control system breaks, you have to fix that. And so you have to move your priorities around a little bit. And then this fall, we'll be navigating a pretty substantial strategic plan revision. So we had a 4-year strategic plan that had expired at the end of last school year. In the past, we invited commissioners and community members and parents and students and staff to join that team. So if we'll throw the invite out once we kind of firm some meetings up a little bit. And if any commissioners are interested in joining that strategic planning process, we'd love to have them. We're a community school. We want to integrate with the community as best that we can. And we try to live by that mantra, and glad to have additional input from outside sources. So that's a lot of information in about 5 minutes. So, yeah, Bill.
It's sort of good to see on your list of new hires and so forth, a lot of common names that have been around. You're picking from the area, or they're coming forth from the area to join. It's good to see that happening.
Talked about that local pipeline. That's going to be the way that we're going to be able to staff. So now it comes down to supporting those new people in new roles. Some are getting a 2-year student teaching experience from a fire hose, essentially, as they kind of simultaneously work to get their certification as well as teach. So they're full-time college students and they're trying to learn the educational process as well. So it's a lot to be navigating, but we've been kind of intentionally grooming some local people that have been in different educational roles, maybe not a teacher per se, but in other places, to try to help them have the opportunity to be ready to join the team when an opportunity might come available. So. Any other questions?
Very
Okay.
informative.
Okay, well, like I said, if you happen to be out and about this fall, I highly recommend a walk on our nature trail. That community access is just a little bit north on Barlow, just past the school. There's an amazing birch stand that is about halfway back on the 2 mile trail that is phenomenal. So that's a great spot, and students have installed a disc golf course out there and a couple other things. So you'd enjoy that along the way as well. So thank you for your time, and you know where to find me if you have additional questions. You want me to swing by for a visit. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. All right. Information. Next up, Mr. Hartley, cybersecurity.
Within the last 7+ years that I've been here, we have had maybe a couple hours of downtime. And usually it's been at night. It's very rare. With a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work, managed to keep us up and running. Our current antivirus is getting to the point where it's not working as well as it should. Getting a lot of false positives where I'm chasing my tail and trying to investigate to find out if we are in fact got hit with anything. And it's really not going to be if, it's going to be when. We will eventually get hit. We do our best with good firewalls, good antivirus, lots of backups, but it's time to change and go with a better antivirus that's out there, a more enterprise class. There's a company called Sophos, and their antivirus is by far one of the better ones out there. It has ransomware protection where if we were ever to get hit, we can roll back and protect ourselves to a point, and mitigate some of the damage that's done. But if we get hit and it's a good ransomware attack, meaning that they've compromised most of our systems, we're looking at probably a week to 2 weeks of downtime where no one has access to a computer in this building. I would like to avoid that as much as possible, as everyone in the room would. There is another portion of this antivirus that we could purchase, and it is a managed threat protection and response. And what that does is they monitor our systems for anomalies 24/7. And then if we do get attacked, we can mitigate the damage to 10 computers in a server. The cost is a little high. This year I can absorb the cost of the antivirus in my budget. I can't do the MTR also. It would be an additional about $3,000 on top of the 2,500 for the antivirus and the MTR. Go ahead.
Yeah, per year.
Per year. Our cybersecurity insurance has dropped from $5 million to $2 million. So we want to limit any kind of damages done. And this would also possibly limit the exfiltration of our data. We have a lot of sensitive data on our servers, from a prosecutor to our sheriff's department to our payroll system. And what they do a lot of times is they'll come in and the first thing they'll do is they'll try to exfiltrate your data. This system is not 100% going to stop it, but we may be able to limit how much they get out. I was very hesitant about, like, do we really need this? And I've kind of come to the conclusion, yeah, this is something we would much benefit the county's computer system for cybersecurity. They are upgrading this thing, so we would go with the standard package. And then in November, they're going to change the entire system up and include call-in support. So there'd be no extra cost for that when actually something does come about. They'll be able to dial in, give me a hand, and help me mitigate any threats that are there. We've done knock on wood, we've done a pretty good job of keeping the threats at bay. Our users have been pretty good about not downloading anything, not clicking on the email links that have been malicious. So we've done pretty well. But it's, in my opinion, it's time to go to the next level.
In reference to the insurance coverage, you made the comment of, from 5 million to 2 million. That's not because we chose a lesser plan. That's because
Any
that's what the
cyber,
industry is doing.
yes, the cybersecurity insurance companies are going out of business or switching what they're insuring because no one wants to do it anymore. A lot of times what will happen is these ransomware companies will come in, they'll exfiltrate your data, they'll encrypt as much as they can. And then they contact you and the insurance company, go, well, how much do you want to pay for us not to post all your information on the dark web? I'd like to avoid that altogether. And I think this is a good way to mitigate it as much as possible. I don't think you can mitigate it fully, but this is a good start.
And that would be approximately $5,500 a year.
Right. The total cost of the package for the 3-year was $15,900. And they can finance that for 3 years with no interest. So they're paying a portion each year.
How does that fit in 3 years?
We would renew. We would renew it.
Oh, we do.
They're giving us a free year with this, so it would be a heck of a lot more expensive, but it's because we're signing up for 3 years, we get a year free.
Can you say that price again?
15,900 for 3
For
years.
3 years.
3 years.
So if we're giving us a year free, that means we're getting 4 years of protection?
No. It's buy 2 get 1 free.
So it's actually 7,500 or 7,800.
Yeah, it would be a lot more expensive if we didn't go for the 3 years. I've contacted a lot of my cohorts in the local government, and a fair number are starting to switch to this for better protection. There's a few other companies that are players in the game. This is the best one for the cost. Some of these get really, really expensive, really, really quick.
At least the first reason.
So it's up to you guys as to what you guys want to spend on this, but my recommendation is to go with the full blown package for the better protection.
So the 24-23, you said you can cover that.
Yeah, I can cover that amount for the year, and then we can budget the rest of the amount for next year. If it's extra past that, I would have a hard time budgeting for this year.
Okay, thank you. That's it for presentation. Moving on to unfinished business. Equalization letter of understanding. Could personnel please update us on the opinion for the request?
Mr. Chairman, if I may suggest, I believe we need a motion to bring this back on the table before we. This is
Okay.
tabled. And from the last meeting,
Then I will make a motion to bring this back on the table. Support. Who's supported? This is roll call or all is a favor situation? Roll call it is.
Gother,
Yes.
Brumman. Yes. Thompson,
Yes.
Small,
Yes.
Brady.
Yes. Okay, we're back on the table. So that being said, the person will give us their recommendation.
we have provided that for the last month or more, I think, indicating that it was our recommendation that this request be denied.
So in order to make this official, somebody or me or whoever can make a motion. Either way, with motion to deny or motion to approve, we can vote accordingly.
I'll make a motion to deny it.
Okay, motion to deny the request for equalization.
Support.
Move to supported. Any further conversation? Go ahead.
Well, I look forward to working with Carolyn on the policy or procedure, so I kind of know, so we don't have this a long thing. We mentioned last time to working for a policy for equalization, so hopefully we can.
I don't think there's any relevancy between the policies and this and my understanding.
Well, because I didn't know what was, because we submitted one a long time ago and then I never met with personnel. Obviously, I was supposed to meet with personnel, then another one was submitted and the procedure was, I guess, to go with personnel on this one. I didn't know on the first one, so this one came about, then I met with you guys, so it's like, do I meet with you or don't I meet with you?
Okay, well, we can
Right.
definitely review that later date for sure. Any other commissioners or comments? Okay, hearing none, let's do a roll call, please.
Small,
Before I vote, I want to hear the motion again, please.
To deny the request of the letter.
No.
Gother,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Brumman,
Yes.
Thompson.
Motion carries. Next item. ARPA reporting. This comes up again because and sure, you correct me when I'm wrong on this, but we need to establish who is responsible for doing the reporting to the state government or whatever government is involved on how we're spending our ARPA and how that helps. ARPA is American Rescue Plan monies, in case you didn't know. Our treasurer did cover that for us in the last round, with much appreciation from the commissioners, but we're gonna have to make that make an official decision on how to handle that in the future. I don't know that we need to vote on something, but an idea that I have is to make it a responsibility of finance, but they can use our the people who are on our budget analyst positions to so we'd have to adjust the compensation in the, that those people are willing to take that on, but that's one idea I have. But what we need to do is come to some kind of decision on this pretty soon.
Would it not be appropriate for the ARPA committee itself to?
That is also another good suggestion, correct. When is our committee next week?
I'll set a date, or I'll talk about it, we'll set a date. As soon as we can.
Can we get a recommendation from you guys on how to handle it?
Sure.
We
Why
can
not? Think we know.
Kind of get it off our plate. Yeah, go ahead down to press to see if that's applicable.
Yep.
Okay,
What's the date of the first report? I thought it had passed.
I'd say it's the first report's in and our treasurer took it upon herself to make that happen for us.
What is the date of the next?
Probably September.
September?
September's our next. So make that, let me know what it is. If it's not too many commissioners, then I'll go to. There are 2 commissioners on that? Yeah. Oh, there is, then I will go. I'll be in the building. That's for ARPA reporting. Let's just get this solved and figured out. Let's just be done with it. We've been kind of kicking the can down the road for about too long now, so. Next item is library trustee letter. Should be in the packet.
I would move that we approve the appointment of Teresa McCurdy for the library position, which terminates December 31st, 2022.
Support.
Move supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call.
Brady,
Yes.
Brumman.
Yes.
Gothier.
Yeah.
Thompson.
Yes.
Small.
Yes.
Okay, good. New business, on the claims.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the pre-authorized claims and open claims presented for payment between August 3rd, 2022 and August 16th, 2022 for check numbers 148290 to 148423. And e-check numbers 1916 to 1922 for a grand total $325,770.07.
Second. Motion by Dan, second by Terry. Any further discussion?
Is there a reasonably easy? Essentially, a reasonable method whereby the fund number and the line item can be reflected for each of the checks?
Yes, there's a report that can be run for that. To be as part of the packet.
Usually, or did that just?
I mean, I can't say off the top of my head, place it done in fund one, but yes, probably fairly easily.
Basically bring up the report that Dan had looked at, isn't it?
I don't see it would get sent to you with AP.
Oh, the report that we look at has exactly what she's talking about.
Mhm.
So yeah, it is possible you would like to see that in future package.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to have an opportunity to review it, and, I may be the only person that cares. Or it takes time, or if there's someone trying to look at it. But I would if I had it.
Okay. I would also say you're welcome to that information if you want to generate that work. Don't feel, we'll provide it for you at court, but if you wanna, go and run that report like you used to, that's fine too, because it's all public information.
I've only got sometimes 18 hours of that available.
Oh, really? Okay, well, I'll make sure you get a copy. Well, I'll make sure a copy is available for all commissioners. That's just a matter, we gotta print it out when we do it. You know, we're bringing it up on the screen.
All commissioners can be CC'd on AP. I mean, it's all public. All commissioners have access to general ledger. Yeah, you can run your own report right out of the GL.
Oh. Look at payroll checks and stuff, right?
No.
Yeah,
Do you have access to AP?
well, what she says is if hours, it doesn't let you run that report anymore.
Yeah, I know.
For whatever reason.
So when AP is sent, it can just be sent to
If
everybody.
it's available, I will.
Numerous ways.
That's about. Yeah. Anyway, we've got a motion on the table.
Small,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Brumman,
Yes.
Gothier.
Okay, moving on, Labor Day building closure, noon Friday, September 2nd, 2022.
So moved.
Support. Supported to close the building at noon on Friday, September 2nd for setup of the art fair like we do have in the past forever. Any further discussion?
Can I discuss something about that while we're discussing the Labor Day weekend real quick?
Sure.
One of the issues that came up last year is we had the building in the past been closing the last few years to the public for security reasons as well as wear and tear on the building. I'm wondering if we could do that again this year, just to save on the wear and tear in the building. They made adjustments to it last year by adding more porta johns outside. We would still like to allow the work staff that actually operates it to be able to use our building in the morning. They have a separate key for the building. That way they can use my office because they set up coffee pots and donuts and stuff like that for all the vendors. And it allows them, they're the only ones that are going to be able to get into the building in the morning and stuff like that.
That's what they were told.
Yes,
What is they put speakers on the roof?
that is normally Ken Manning, what's the speakers. are.
Correct. And we asked them if, when they approached us, if not mistaken, we asked for some insurance proof. because he's now going up on the roof to do that and takes him back down, it would behoove us to have the liability insurance on, showing that he had it
Okay,
before he goes up there.
I will check into
Goes
that.
along my brand new roof.
Yeah. Yeah, he just basically, but it's just a tripod that goes up on the roof and he runs the wire down the side of the building. So actually, it's just a tripod with a speaker up on the roof to broadcast on the sides. So that's all that's going actually up on the roof, but we can check into that. I just figured I saw that it was on the agenda. I just wanted to bring that up. As we're discussing it.
If it's the same thing we did last year, then I don't see why not.
Okay,
Contract. And it was in the motion too.
Yeah.
Or in the letter that was sent to them.
it's in the letter. I was just bringing it up as a discussion so everybody knew what was going on, because sometimes people don't hear everything that we just, kind of on the side, so.
Okay, do I need to amend the motion to approve that information?
No, I think it's already going along. I just wanted to make it a public discussion.
Okay, good, thanks. Any other comments? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before we move into the finance report, we had in our packet a letter from GAR, from Daughters of American Revolution, asking us to proclaim Constitution Week as September 17th to 23rd, and authorizing the chair to sign the proclamation form. And I would like to so move that we make that proclamation and authorize the chair to sign.
For a second. Proclamation. Yes, so do you think? Any other discussion? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Do we need a roll call on proclamations?
No.
Resolution, we were proclamation, no, yeah. I can proclaim, okay, then all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Next up, complaint.
So go record. Yes, I know. Okay, then moving on to finance report. We have anything?
Had a meeting last Friday and think everything, moving along. The Treasurer's office is doing an outstanding job and everything moving forward. Paying the loans going up, but.
Yeah. Do we have any money to move that we need to do today?
The only information I got was on Monday, I had a, the sheriff came in and we had a discussion about the two funds that were emailed. And that was the only thing, there was just not a lot of detail, so we just need to meet with finance.
Okay.
Finance, we need to meet with them, with the sheriff's department to figure out what exactly his intention.
We need to set up another finance meeting.
Yep. Okay, then that's it for finance report. How about, well, personnel, we'll probably talk about at the end here, huh?
I asked to go into closed session
Okay,
at a time that you said we.
I think we'll do that at the last public comment. Yeah. That way everybody gets a chance to say them. Treasurer's report.
And I brought you all, I'm up to date. Year to date for revenues and expenditures. And once you get these, that last column. It says OBA because I had to make up a title for that last column. That's all the original information from the original budget. And the A's are the amended budget. Those are, so on that column are the journal, is the culmination of all the journal entries that have been done in regards to the revenues and expenditures for the 2022 year. And as you go through, there were a few amendments, and if you look at the back of the first page, the original budget to the current budget, there was more than anticipated revenue than originally budgeted. So we have an increase of 18,191 as of today.
in revenues that were unplanned or unscheduled and unexpected. So those have transpired to the increase of the general ledger in the 101. The corresponding expenditures, because I only printed out 101 here. We have still a balanced budget, but an increase in revenues and expenditures for the year that were changed $18,191. So, and there's some things that were not originally budgeted, some that were under budgeted and unanticipated. So this is just kind of an overview for you to look at. There are some things. It's kind of confusing because there's some that are in parentheses but that is not, that's just that was lessened and the other ones were more. There was some, quite a few expenditures in certain departments that were not anticipated. And those are all adjusted in there too. And so this is what we're looking at. Preparing for the 2023 budgets. The changes that had taken place that need to be considered for next year's budget. I just kind of wanted everybody to have an overview and see where we are today. We have started taking in tax dollars from the townships. We have a few that are a little bit behind in their payments. And as of yesterday, because we haven't finished for the day, closing out today, we've collected 523,000. We still have 2,874,000 to come in. And that generally just kind of trickles in through the year. We'll have a spike next month when people want to pay their taxes before the due date. And then December before the bills go out. We also have notifications that will be going out that we will be collecting a lot of delinquent 2020 taxes, which are not reflected in this report, but those are payments that should be coming in pretty steadily. We have 175 properties that are still outstanding for 2020. Just a quick. I didn't know if anyone would be interested in the corrections and the journal entries that were done. I have a printout of all the changes that have been made. There's 21 pages of changes that were made throughout the year. If anyone's interested, I do have that available. It is online. It is on the computer, but I do have that available if anyone wanted to peek over that. We did our mid-year corrections for wages, and there are still a few upcoming events that will need to be handled and looked into. But that is about all I have. Yes.
Is the journal entries compared to other years, is it sort of like on track? Are we doing more journal entries this year than other years, or are we getting better at projecting?
This is my first year doing it, so I mean, I can tell you, as far as the entry wise, I don't have anything to compare it to.
Okay.
I mean, I can run a report from last year to see how many were done, but I really don't have anything to compare it to. I do know that looking at the budget itself, we do that as it comes up and on a weekly basis. I know the checks, we have not had less than half of the corrections that we've had in the past few years, very minimal to comparatively to the last few years. That has nothing to do with the budget. It's just if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, we're getting better.
Oh, absolutely. We're getting a good system, and I think it's working out very well, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I'd also like to state that any department heads that are having concerns about transfers and things, please contact Anna or I in finance, email, in person, phone call. You know, we can address whatever concerns you have for sure in person and help to remediate any issues you think that may be arising. Anybody, any department heads, I would just, I appreciate, you know, coming to resolve the issue in person. So, I agree with Cheryl that the system's working pretty well. It's kind of new, so we'll see what happens, but so far it's proven out to be much easier to track. So the other thing is with the transfers all being funneled through finance committee email, it's easy for me to answer any questions department heads might have regarding you know, when transfers were made or who requested or what the suggestions were. And anything that is made or done is signed by Dan or I or both as a finance committee. So that's all I'd say about that. Anything else? Sure.
No, was there any other questions anyone had?
We'll move on to the clerk's report.
I didn't think I had very much to report, but I started writing it down, and yeah, we met with finance and that went really good. Seems when there's an agenda and you can make the check marks, it's nice to see something done. We met with 44 North again in regard to the 2023 rates that are coming up. They don't really have any figures set yet as percentage increase or no changes. But we did request to see lots of options. I don't have any problem with 44 North. We saw what the quotes went like when we went out for Mesa or Lappin, or being that we are a smaller group, figured they're not really interested in quoting. Also, MMRMA, the credits as being in a state pool came in today. And there was a smaller one that looks like it's set by the state pool committee. And that was a credit of about $890. And the other credit was from the investment committee from MMRMA. And that was in the amount of $4,941. So roughly almost $6,000 in credits for being in that state pool. And we're only a couple of years in. Some of these counties are 10, 15 years in, and it's a $30,000 credit that they're getting towards their insurance. So that was nice, and that was turned over to the treasurer's office today. Also for this election, the former clerk always had a set person and group that worked with her for years, being MER. And as soon as the former clerk retired, so did the head of MER. So I had to start new. They bought out a new company. That's who printed all of our ballots. They didn't do our program or anything like that. They just did the printing of the ballot. And MER was considerably more. So I was curious to see what the printers were of the ballots from 2020 versus 2022. And it looks like it was roughly $1,200 cheaper that we saved having Election Source print, just do the printing of the ballot. And so I'll see what the general looks like in comparison. And then also, let me see, the canvassers met since their last commissioners meeting. The jury board met yesterday. They have all of the jurors set for the next jury year, which goes into effect on September 1st. And the travel vouchers were also sent out to reflect the new rates. So if anybody that got those could use those if you're a department head. So they're all look the same. I don't know how everybody just started creating their own mail look different, but that'd be great if everybody could use the same ones. And the deadline for any of the county or local proposals elapsed on August 16th, as well as any recount requests. And also, like Cheryl just mentioned, the 1% contract stipend for POLC, that was done so that they know what will need to be budgeted for the defined contribution for their union contract. And I think that's it.
Okay, Clerk's report, communications in your packet, if I may be allowed. Can we do the? Never mind. Sure. we can. No, that's pretty. Communications in your packet, read at your leisure. How about committee reports?
Yes, I have the veterans meeting and mental health meeting, something township meetings. Things happening with mental health that been briefing several commissions about and nothing. And veterans, of course, we've already heard quite a bit of what they've been up to. I only say to Tony that was good of you to take the bull by the horn and get going early.
Dan?
Pretty much, August is a pretty quiet month. Township, our meeting, NEMCOG does have a meeting coming up. So does district out next week. And that much.
Okay, committee reports, this is, do it as finance, but you put this, the status their associates on the agenda for new business next meeting. The, hiring the firm for, veterans to do the sampling. I'll make sure we're up to date and educated on this with the presentation day and provide materials. We should make a vote of this so they can get rolling if they're gonna get rolling, so.
The BEA.
Huh?
The BEA.
Yeah, that one, yeah. Also, for your reports, this is township business, go to your townships and talk about wind. I'm sorry, solar. There's a big presence right now. A couple different companies are hitting up anybody with 100 acres plus to do some solar farms. Consumers is one of them. They came to meeting, Rusty Township meeting, the last one, and did a pretty good presentation. So you contact our Rich Castle. If you contact him, he would be happy to come and do a show and tell for your townships. Do that too. What's important is to have an ordinance. If you don't have an ordinance,
Right.
they come and do whatever they want.
Oh, I know, yeah.
And I got to view one of the contracts that consumers is offering people, and they're pretty comprehensive and pretty responsible, but regardless, the ordinance should be in place, so I think that's important to mention.
Maybe should even company our analysis on that.
Yeah.
This is one and Ranger.
Ranger, that's the other one.
And,
Thank you.
They will do, information and stuff.
Great, thanks, Rosie. How about you, Bill?
Haynes is doing just that. They're getting ready to do their solar ordinances. The district library is actually finally got a movement going. We had a meeting yesterday, and a representative of the Curtis board was there and felt that he might have a settlement for the land room type thing. It would be a joint effort. In the preliminary contract, it needs to have that the district library would own the building and property or have leases on it or so forth throughout the whatever branches there were. The Curtis Township was having a difficult time trying to figure out how to do that. They finally are deciding this agreement might work as the new district library and township form an agreement in which the library provides the material, staffing, and furnishings, while the township provides the building maintenance and utilities. So if they agree to that type of merge, then that was one stepping stone that we were blocked up for a long time. If they agree to that, then that'll go into the draft of the contract that we will see when it gets written, and be able to move forward on doing that. There's another issue is still with the 3 employees with MERS met with them. And the information was a little spotty only because they were using a laptop with the speaker and it wasn't good enough for a lot of them to hear. But there are some options that MERS can work with not only the district, but us and the 3 employees. That will have to be worked out totally, but it is something that there is some options for those people rather than totally cutting them off. I mean, that is one option, is they would freeze their retirement and would have to start something new. But there are other ones too. So they're moving forward. They are hoping to get something between October and December finalized so that it would come to both boards for not only for review, but to a vote on and move forward. So it is moving a little bit. Then it's to fair the rest of the week and a half. So
Can I ask where the millage lands in that?
the millages, from what we were told, are allowed to continue. The 2 millages, the Alcona one and the one that Curtis has 2 millages. Part of it goes to them and part of it goes to Alcona. That would continue until they ran out. Let's just say the district got formed in October. They would have one of the millages is over in 23 and the other one I think is 24. Those would continue to run. The funds would still be brought into the county and then brought back to as it is now, but it would go to it is legal to go into the district. But at that time, when the different millages stopped, like the first one in 23, the district library board would have to be ready to put out a new millage that would pick up and go. They have a 11-year mortgage limit, but it was have to have a new millage out there. So when the second one died in 24, that they would be enough in that new millage to carry them on through. So the lawyer that they're using has indicated there's a law that allows a district library to still utilize the funds that are presently going from the counties to a library, can continue into the district until that millage runs out. And then a new millage has to come up with the district's name on it, not the county. So, does that answer?
Yeah, no. Just the HR portion of that, what if they do branch off at the district, and has that been discussed as well?
He did bring it up.
He did, okay.
MERS just came out, they did
But
talk, and
insurance
they have a
and-
defined contribution for MERS.
Okay.
And the easiest one is to remove them from, they would just cease, they would freeze their retirement and start something different, but there are other options that would help the 3 employees, or at least 2 of them, for the next year or so. Get one of them needed, both employees have indicated that in a couple of years they want to retire. And it would be sort of in our, I wouldn't say favor, but our obligation to allow something to work with them on there.
So do I understand that once they turn into a district library, we no longer, they are a district library, a separate entity on their own?
Correct.
No association with the county other than leasing,
No,
or if they purchase, however, those buildings are
Yes.
held.
basically, correct. The employees would no longer be county employees. That's part of what MERS is having, we're having this
Right.
problem with that. There's options that I don't think we really want to do. There's leasing of employees and stuff like that,
I just meant the building.
the building,
land
we
of
would
the
have to
building
sign
itself.
off. Well, the buildings our county ones are already in the name of the library,
The
the
Alcona County
properties of the
Library,
building. Pardon?
the Alcona County Library.
Yes, but that basically is their building, not county building. It was purchased by either their millage or through their, just close to what the veterans did, but the name on the deed says the library on it.
Some of the bear, a lot of research, that's all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of details that need to be cleaned up.
I was just curious. I just wanted to make sure that
Valid
that
point.
was. Yep.
Anything else, Bill? How are you, Caroline?
LPC and LPT met with the fairgrounds as they have a number of years, their summer meeting just held over there. We have a new board member on LPC, LPT, Steve Cruz, representing Red Cross. We have reviewed the new hunt bylaws and those will be approved at the next meeting. Yes. I provided you at your place, two pictures, both, we passed at our, Soda Wordsmith Airport zoning meeting this morning. We passed approval of the Coletta run-up shelter. This is for, them to do testing of, the engines in a safer mode than they have currently. And that will, this morning was the first step, and it goes through many, many steps. So we'll go through the full board tomorrow. Then it has to go to FAA, it has to go to MDOT, it has about half a dozen hoops to jump through. They expect that, none of them do we see any kind of a problem with, but nonetheless, they do have to be accomplished. And we see initiating the project next spring to be completed by fall. So that will be a really good thing up there. 211 has new bylaws, and the biggest change there is that the verbiage in the older bylaws indicated that it was quorum was the number of board members present. Through our attorney, we now have to have that it must be not less than a third of the board members must be present for a full board meeting to take any action. We've received nothing yet on the opioid request, but that doesn't surprise me at all. So, and I think that's pretty much what, I mean, some of the things I've been working on.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's do our last public comment section. 5 minutes, state your name and your township. You have something to say? Anybody on? Oh, there we go.
I was wondering regarding the wind and solar ordinances, is there one commissioner or one individual or one committee that's been formed to try to facilitate the exchange of information from township to township? I think I went to Caledonia last summer and they were working on a wind ordinance. Is there someone so that each township doesn't have to reinvent the wheel and make their own ordinance? Is there somebody that's coordinating so that once Haynes does something, that all the other townships can kind of say, okay, let's just use this and change it to our purposes?
I really think NEMCOG does. I think they all get a hold of NEMCOG as far as help with their zoning ordinances, and they kind of lead them in the right direction. They should be doing that.
They also have a meeting.
Is there anybody
They have a
facilitating to
meeting
make sure
supervisor.
that all the townships are kind of on board and know that they really want to be doing this and be proactive on doing these things?
Not from here.
No, not from there.
From here, but MTA, I'm getting this there, association there, them probably are sort of the ones that are been directing it in generalization. Different townships, because they have their meetings every month and so forth.
Is there an opinion as to of all of your townships, how many are actively doing this? How many are discussing, how many are planning, how many are in the final stages of doing ordinances?
Well, I think the supervisors probably talk between themselves, but I don't know.
I only know of one of my three. Execs of the next things. I don't think they're still on another.
Dustin's doing their own.
And the city doesn't have a really a need. So
Harrisville Township, their zoning or, planning commission redoing theirs right now,
Right.
and it's added in there, so. I think it's more of a planning commission thing when they update their ordinance every so many years and everything. I'm pretty sure all of them are aware of it. You know, at least the planning commission that I'm a part of, you know, said that, they've already contacted Livonia. I believe they're the ones that, already have ordinance in place and approved by the
Right.
commissioners.
Okay, any other public comments? Hearing none, I'll request a 5-minute recess, and then we'll go to closed session.
These were basic.
Yes.
Took me an hour, but I figured it out. That's what I was. Well, I was. Oh, no, I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
then
yeah.
small. I'm like,
Different.
Small, it's not small, everybody calls me small.
But they just come up with their.
Small.
yeah. 'Cause I-
I know somebody who.
Changed job a few times. It works. They're fun.
Oh, you want to do something?
Yes, you know, you're. He's in rock. Yeah. I should go. Thank you all.
Door closed back open.
Now, yes.
Okay, back into open session. No motions came from that, right?
Well, unless you would want to make a motion that we proceed on the as directed previous.
Supported. Sorry, I'll make that motion. Motion, see that as directed, seconded by roll call.
Berman. Small.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yeah.
Brady.
Yes.
Goffey.
Motion carries.
Small, not small.
I'm sorry.
Show it.
Last name was.
Balls.
Oh, it's from that.
It's the movie.
You're killing me, Smalls.
The young lady there.
Any commissioner additional comments, concerns besides the aggravation or mispronunciation of names? Okay, meeting adjourned,
That's why they're already.
meeting adjourned.
So, again, did you, like 2 minutes?